And I know what you're thinking, ooh, Lawrence, what are you doing in Iowa? And I wish I could tell Iowans that I'm here to take up farming, but the truth is, my wife bought me tickets to go see some up-and-coming indie artist in that building there. So that's what we did last night. This is the indie artist. But aside from seeing a Scouser sing some songs, we do have half a day in Des Moines, so figured we'd make content in order to pay for those tickets, because they were bloody expensive.
But we had a swell time, you know.
So come with me, and before you do that, if you're not yet subscribed to this channel, do that now. In the meantime, this is Iowa. I was surprised by how bumpy the roads were. It felt like the whole journey from the border of Iowa to Des Moines. I was just doing this the whole time. You know, it's almost like they are trying to replicate the feeling of riding a horse. The United States is home to more than 600,000 bridges. Of these, more than a third are in need of significant repairs or complete replacement. And while this is a national problem, one state in particular might think that it's a bridge too far.
Report from the American Road and Transportation Builders Association says Iowa has the worst bridges in the country.
But why is Iowa bad at bridges? For answers, I asked future Lawrence, who has all of the details in front of him. Thanks, past Lawrence. Not sure why you thought I'd become an expert on architecture in just a fortnight, but I did look up those details you were too lazy to glean. Basically, about 1 in 5 of Iowa's bridges is rated structurally deficient. That doesn't mean they're about to collapse, but it does mean they're old, corroded, and generally a bit shit. Many were built in the mid-20th century, back when Eisenhower was busy turning America into the world's largest scalextric. The problem, as with much of America's infrastructure, is geography and money. Iowa ranks 32nd in the nation for number of people, but 7th for number of bridges. Maintaining all that rural infrastructure costs more than the state brings in. When you combine heavy farm equipment, freeze-thaw weather, and a few decades of budget delays, you've got a recipe for rust. The Iowa Department of Transportation insists that any bridge deemed unsafe is immediately closed, but the report doesn't exactly inspire confidence in a state where the west and eastern borders are largely made up of the nation's 2 largest rivers, the Missouri and the Mississippi. What do you think, Iowans? Does this report sound right? Feel free to sound off about it in the comments. Thanks, future Lawrence. Now it's time to see what Des Moines has to offer in terms of food. But first, while I'm feeling hangry, let me tell you about my biggest pet peeve as a content creator. Data brokers. In both Britain and the United States, there are hundreds of data brokers that collect and sell your personal information. We're not just talking about your name and address. These sites can include your employment history, political beliefs, property records, even information about your family members, and they sell it on to whoever's paying. And then there are people search sites, which are especially common here in the US. With just a few clicks, anyone could look up your home address, relatives, or financial history. No harder than me pulling up directions to Iowa. The problem is, removing yourself from these sites is nearly impossible on your own. It would take hundreds of hours of repetitive requests, and even then, your details could pop back up again later. That's where Incogni comes in. Incogni automatically reaches out to data brokers on your behalf and requests they delete your personal information. If your data shows up again, they'll take it back down, and if you opt for their unlimited plan, you can even request removals from any site you point them to, like those people's search sites that seem to multiply overnight. I've been partnering with and using Incogni for more than a year, and I have to say it's a huge weight off my shoulders, because while I was in Iowa critiquing bridges, Incogni acted like a moat around my house. They sent me updates as the requests went through, so I can see my digital footprint shrinking in real time. And it's not just content creators that are affected, people with real jobs could also be susceptible. So do what I did. Take control of your data. Head to incogni.com/lostinthepond and get an impressive 60% discount on Incogni's annual plan by using the code LOSTINTHEPOND. The link is in my description below. I'll be honest, I stopped looking at Des Moines restaurant listings when I found this place. As the second most famous British person to visit the city this month, I couldn't resist a visit to the pub. Irish Guinness is easy to come by in the US, but for those of us who no longer drink alcohol, I was pleased to see the Royal Mile had a non-alcoholic version. The Royal Mile is absolutely replete with British iconography all around, the kinds of which you maybe wouldn't see in an actual British pub. However, one thing that it does have in its favour is that it has British food options elements here that I don't think I've really seen at other British pubs in America, including what appears to be sausage rolls under the name of Banger Bites, which I think is the Americanized name. We're about to find out.
Sounds so dirty.
Come to think of it, so does sausage rolls. Either way, these are genuine sausage rolls, and after all these years of living in America, I have to say, I've not really found these anywhere. This is making me consider moving to Des Moines.
It's a really large sausage.
Unbelievable.
This is a steak and Guinness pie, which they have doused in lots of gravy. This looks good, and as I suspected, I don't know that the gravy was necessary because there's gravy inside the pie, but I'm not complaining about it.
That's why you should laugh.
That's a nice pie.
Bangers and or mash, or as Americans might call it, tater sausage. That's a really good sausage. It tastes like Lincolnshire sausage, the county I'm from. A few months ago, I told you that I'd been to precisely half the 50 United States. With this being my first ever visit to the state of Iowa, I'm now officially over the halfway mark. But this also marks my 12th capital city, which is something that my dad would be proud of. He's the guy who just used to write down the populations of all of the cities and all of the states in America. And when I was a kid, he used to tell me people pronounce the name of this city wrong. But while I was queuing up for Paul McCartney last night, I got speaking to somebody who was from Des Moines in Illinois. And it got me wondering, why does one of these French-sounding places keep the S's and the other doesn't? Well, it all comes down to something America consistently shares with Britain: inconsistency. America in particular seems to have zero rules around French-inspired place names.
Notre Dame University.
I didn't even have to cross into Iowa to know that. Des Plaines, like St. Louis, is linguistically inconsistent with Illinois itself. Just like the sentence, Lawrence Brown will never be a hit content creator, the S is silent in Illinois. Famously, this is also true of the final letter in Arkansas. In fact, that very state saw the S-less pronunciation decided at the political level.
The only true pronunciation of the name of the state is that received by the French from the native Indians and committed to writing in the French word representing the sound.
Des Moines, too, remains faithful to its French origins, with its name derived from Rivière des Moines, which literally means River of the Monks. Come to think of it, the city is pretty quiet, so that makes sense.
I've got a feeling that we're going to have a bit of a party here tonight.
We came to a place without good bridges to hear a man who excels at them. For my part, I've been a Beatles fan since about the age of 4, when my dad played this pretty rare cassette every Sunday. I say pretty rare, mostly because the compilation was only sold in a handful of countries, including Britain and Australia, but not the United States. However, if you're from this side of the pond, you'll be pleased to know my dad really loved how Americans in particular went mad for the Beatles. They once had the first 5 on the US Hot 100, he'd often repeat with nostalgic glee. His nostalgia was not misplaced. On April 4th, 1964, the group did indeed occupy America's top 5. And here we are in Iowa, a state where the music once died so tragically, hearing a man who co-wrote 4 of those songs, so please forgive me. The whole thing caused me to smile for the first time since 1998. Perhaps now I'll think about Des Moines every time I hear Blackbird, Yesterday, or Drive My Car. As somebody who spent 8 years in Indiana, I'm no stranger to all of this. Corn. But did you know that no state in the US produces more of it than Iowa? Basically, corn was everywhere, along the highway, on the hills, on the ground.
I found dinner.
And possibly on your plate. You see, no country on earth produces more corn than the United States, and 16% of that is grown in Iowa. It helps that the state sits on a perfect storm of corn-growing conditions, rich glacial soil, a warm climate with the right balance of sun and rain. Every summer, Iowa produces 2.6 billion bushels of the stuff. From there, it's transported across the country to feed livestock, fill ethanol tanks, and sneak into everything Americans eat, from soda to cereal. And something I discovered after moving to the American Midwest is that corn even winds up as an autumn activity, aka corn mazes. These are known as maize mazes in Britain, where maize is an alternative word for corn. We found one on our way out of Des Moines and figured it would be a good way to experience a fine Iowa tradition while injecting action into the video. Sadly, corn mazes aren't as fun when you're in your 40s, so we decided to up the stakes. We would go off in separate directions. Unfortunately, I started getting flashbacks to a time in my childhood when Uncle Toby chased me through a maze dressed as Jack Torrance. This is why we're about to hear disturbing music. I knew we shouldn't have split up. Hello? Tara? breath. I haven't had water in like hours. Jesus. Let's see. Looks like a velociraptor came through here. Tara? Oh my gosh, scared me. You had your back turned like that guy in Blair Witch Project.
Can we go home?
Yeah. So this was my brief visit to Iowa. If you want to know more about my journey across the United States, you'll watch this video next, in which I make a confession. Until the next video, goodbye.